All right, everybody. Welcome to this installment of Dave's Garage, Dave's Man Cave, modifying Dave's bike. What are we going to do today? Well, we're pretty much done with most of the other mods. We've got frame sliders, we've got swing arm spools, we have safety wired, we've got one of those gold, they're like 25 bucks, but they're worth it. It's already pre-drilled, really nice, high quality drain plug. It's an M12 by 1.5. That's safety wire, the oil filter safety wired. We got the ECU flash done. We took out the catalytic converters out of that pipe, out of that box, so it sounds really good without being obnoxious and frankly without costing me anything other than an hour and a half of hammering and drilling and swearing. That was really the only cost. We've got our tail tidy, which I think looks pretty damn good, nice and tight, and it's adjustable. And the only mod left is to do comfort, Helibars. The seat's actually pretty damn good. So what we've got are these clip-ons are just put your wrist at a very, when you're sitting on it, at a very kind of a angle that I don't like. And I have this problem with my Gixxer 750, my R1, and my ZX6R. And Sarah had the same problem with her ZX6R. So Helibars sells a great, fantastic product. It is OEM quality. It's all pre-drilled, looks stock. So when this is on there, it's not going to look like an aftermarket clip-ons. But what it does do is it changes the angle. Each one is a little bit longer. It's like 3/8 of an inch back, and it's like 1.25 inches up. All it's doing is this part here, the clamp that goes around the top of the fork, this angle right here, it just takes your wrist from doing this. See how there's like that bend in my wrist? And it's going to do that. That's it. That's all it needs. It's not going to make it tall and upright and goofy and take away from its sporting ability. It's not going to impede it on the track. This is the Helibar Trackstar that just keeps it low, keeps your weight over the front. It really just makes you going from this to that. So what do you got to do to install this? I'm going to have certain video where I will not be talking and we'll play it at like 16 speed just to speed it up. There's a lot of little things to do, but it's really not that hard. You just need basic tools. You're going to need basically a 36 millimeter. That's going to be for the steering nut, steering stem nut. Okay, that's that big nut there that's underneath this. To get this off, you need the security style Torx bit. I had one, took it off when I was trying this the other day, getting ready for this mod, and when I went to put it back on, of course the bit wasn't magnetic that I got off Amazon, and if it fell down in that hole and rolled down, and it's somewhere between the airbox and the top of the motor. So I went to Ace Hardware and got 2 stainless steel bolts using a normal, I think that's a 4.5 or a 5.5 millimeter hex that I can just use a normal Allen wrench or a T-handle. I would recommend doing that. So you need that. And here's what you do. It's a bunch of little fiddly stuff, but none of it's hard. Here's some things I would recommend before you get started. 1, have it in a rear stand. 2, if you have a front stand, not the style that goes underneath the forks, but the kind that has a pin. I think it's a 15 mil on this one or a 14 mil. It's a really tiny one. Goes up underneath, so I can get the angle, and it goes into the bottom of the lower triple clamp. That holds the front tire off the ground and lets you move the bars around. So if you need to move it to get at one of these bolts, you can. It also keeps all the weight unloaded off the front end, because part of getting these new ones on is you're gonna have to take off this bolt and this bolt, move this aside. You're not going to remove these yet. You're going to take off the bar ends, which is hex bolt, right? That'll come off. And then you're going to just loosen a whole bunch of shit. You're going to loosen those bolts. You're going to loosen those bolts right there. On the back side where my finger is, and then one where my other finger is down there, there are 2 screws. You're going to loosen those. You're going to take off that. You're going to do the same here. There's 2 screws right here in the front where my fingers are, and then there's 2 on the back. You're going to loosen those. You're going to loosen those. You will remove this screw right here that mounts that bracket for the brake reservoir to that, because that goes to the clip-on. You're going to loosen all that shit so that these will pop up enough that the locator pin that goes into the hole in the bar will pop out. Because when we do that, once this is off, you're going to loosen this pinch bolt, that pinch bolt, and this whole top triple clamp is going to pop off, and we're going to set it out of the way. Okay, it won't go very far because it is connected to the ignition switch and some other thing. But we're going to pop that off and just set it off to the side. And then there is 2 more bolts. It's hard with this stuff being in the way, but where my finger is right there, there's a pinch bolt. And then there's one right here on that side, okay? So you're going to loosen those once that's off, and then these are you're going to slide them up and off. There's enough slack in the wires, and you're going to pull this one in this way to give yourself more slack, and you're basically going to slide this out from the controls. And then you're going to put the new one, slide it into the controls loosely, and then you're going to slide it back on, and we're going to let it sit there. We're going to do the same for the other side. Then we're going to put the top triple clamp back on and put it back together, and then we'll start tightening and aligning things and all that, all right? The other thing that we're going to need to do is get this grip off. This is not glued on. It's just held on by friction. So if you have an air compressor, which I do, got a big old air compressor, we're going to put this nozzle on the end, and when this bar end is out of the way, when you put the nozzle up to the edge and you blow air into it under pressure, it slightly inflates this like a balloon, and that thing will go whoop, and slide right off. And when you put it back on the same way, the air will, all that pressure will balloon it just a little bit so it slides on, and as soon as you turn the air off, it immediately tightens, and that rubber on there will just grip it really nice. We will, of course, wipe down the bar with brake cleaner just to make sure that there's no residue of oil or anything on there, and that'll be good. Let me just put it back together. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get to work. The other thing I would say to do before you get started is take a towel and lay that shit across your tank so that you don't scratch anything, and additionally push it up here so that when you invariably drop a nut, when you take this off, there's some washers and spacers there, there's a little spacer under that side. Put these things here, and I may even get some masking tape and tape them in place so that when you invariably drop something, it lands here on your towel or blanket rather than falling down into the bowels of the motor, which happened to me last week. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop this for a second, go get the rest of my stuff set up, and then I'll turn it back on. We'll do some hyperspeed watching me go through everything, and then we'll come back at the end. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so here's what we've got. You won't be able to get the top triple clamps off. There's 2 nut bolts that go in from the bottom and up into here, securing this not only to clamping the fork, but also aligning it properly so one isn't at a different angle than that. So the new ones come with those same holes. You'll also notice one has an L, one has an R. I'll let you figure out what that means. So now all I've got to do is loosen this pinch bolt here and that one there, and these will now slide up and off, and we're going to slide these things out, put that bar to the side, and I'm going to take the other bar, slide it into the controls, and then back on. That took longer than I thought because just getting down in here and getting to all the damn screws when you can't see because there's no room here, and then because I put the towel there to catch anything, was snagging on the Allen wrenches. This is actually an easy job. It's not that hard. So I'm going to go ahead and put the camera back. We're going to start swapping out bars. So you can see, I don't know if you can see from that angle, you can see the difference in the bars. So if I line these all up, New bar, really angled down. Top bar, angled a little more flat and a little back. And it's also just a tiny bit longer. That's all it makes. That's all it needs. It doesn't look like a big difference, but it really does make a difference. Stepped in the air compressor. Scared the shit out of me. All right, so now these are on. These are all loose. What we're going to do is we're going to put on the top triple clamp, and we're going to tighten it first here at the nut, make sure it's fully seated and even, and then we're going to tighten it on both sides. Then we're going to pull these up, leaving them loose, and we're going to put in those bolts with blue Loctite to lock it up into this and orient them. Then we'll go and tighten the other ones. I'm doing this by hand. I don't know the torque settings specifically. I do know how tight they were, and in general, I've done this a bunch of times, so I do know within a few foot-pounds that it's tight enough. I will come back out after I look up the torque settings and go over it with the torque wrench just to make sure. But this is the hardest part, is done now. Now it's just putting everything back. When we're done, we're going to take these inserts. We're going to put them in the vise to hold this. We're going to unscrew those, or... No, actually, I think the other bar ends just screw right into the end. It's already threaded. I don't need to use those inserts. So that's good. So anyway, let us continue as I put this thing back together. And the reason for having that front stand the way it is to take the weight off the front tires. It also allows me to move the wheel. You notice I had to move the handlebars a couple times to get a better angle on those screws. It's hard to do that when it's on the ground, and when you take that top triple clamp off, it's only held by the lower triple. And so at that point, you could get the forks tweaked a little bit to where then you have a bitch of a time getting that top triple back on because they're no longer aligned. So when you use that type of front stand, it takes all the weight off the suspension, so it wants to stay. That thing just went whoop, right back in place, no problem. Even though I've been moving it around and hitting and jostling it a little bit. All right, we're going to hand tighten everything now until it's in the place that I want. Well, we'll give this one just a little bit, just to make sure it's seated completely flat. Okay, that's in place. Now, everything else should be seated flat. We're going to tighten those up on each side. Torque it just a little bit. Go to the other side. Torque it just a little bit. Make sure nothing shifts or one side doesn't get higher than the other or anything like that. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and give it a good bit of torque. Again, I'm going to check the torque settings afterwards. But I know about how tight they should be. You want enough, but it doesn't have to be crazy. Okay, so that's good. The next piece is, just to get this out of the way, no, I can't do the steering damper yet because I got to make sure the top nut's torqued. So we're going to move that up on top, and we're going to put in those bolts that go in underneath. I'm going to use blue thread lock. Do not use red. Certain things you can use blue on, or red on. This is not one of them. You will end up getting that thing in there. If you ever had to change them out, you crash, you got to replace them. You will strip the damn things trying to get that shit out. So don't be that guy. All right, this one's not open yet. Let's find one that's already open. And you don't need a gallon of it either. Just get a little blue on the threads. Now, you will notice it aligns it, but it allows for a little bit of wiggle room. That's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this up now, because it could move just a little bit. And we're going to very loosely snug this bolt, just enough so it doesn't flop. Okay. Now we're not going to fully tighten it yet because there is a little bit of wiggle room and it makes about a 4mm difference. So we're going to wait till we get these on and we get it onto the floor so that I can put weight on it and sit on it, and I'll see if it makes a difference. And I want to make sure that there's no clearance issues, okay? So this one is on enough, it's not going anywhere. It's held captive by that bolt, so it really can't go anywhere. So you want to snug that to where it moves just that little bit, that's it, okay? Do it on both sides. Perfect. All right, now we're going to torque that top nut. And again, I don't have the exact torque setting. I will go back and check it, but I also know that these go on fairly tight. I know about how much pressure it normally takes, so. But it's not like crazy, like 150 foot-pound. That's it. All right. Now we're going to put our steering damper back on. We're going to put this bolt in over here for the reservoir. Bar ends, put the grip on. All right, take a paper towel, spray a little bit of brake cleaner on it, and just wipe this down. Make sure you didn't get any oil, grease from your hand, anything like that. You want it to be nice and clean so that the grip has a nice, good grip. And now, start orienting your controls and get them locked into place. So how are you going to do that? There's pins, the holes are already drilled, just like on the stock ones, like right there, it just clicked in. So put that in, get your Allen wrench and tighten that. We'll worry about the clutch and the brake lever later, because that again is going to move depending on how you like to ride, and the fact that these are different bars, it's going to change the angle. So you want to adjust those to kind of suit your own style. So I'm going to orient the pin over here and now go and tighten all those screws. All right, so here's what I got to do now is I got to take it off the front stand so I can put the weight on the ground, but everything's all tightened up other than 2 bolts. All right, so what I'm going to do is just check the steering lock and make sure that when I turn it all the way, there's nothing hitting up in the front and there's nothing hitting back here or close enough that it'll pinch your hands. And there isn't. All right, so that's good. So what I'm going to do Next is we're going to take it off the rear stand, and I'm going to try to remember to put the kickstand down this time. Yeah, I've done that before. And then we're going to sit on the bike. Of course, UPS would have their backup because he drove past the house. All right, so we are done. All we have to do is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do, then I'll set the camera back up. Is I need to get it off the stand so I can sit on it and see this little bit of wiggle room, that little bit that it moves. I need to just figure out if I want it, if it feels more comfortable a little bit forward, a little flatter, or if it feels better a little bit back. So we're going to just, as soon as we get it, we're either going to push it all the way forward and then tighten it, and then all I got to do is go ahead and set these. Well, I can already tell this feels a lot better. Yeah, so that's what we got to figure out. Do I move it forward or back? It's not much of a difference. I don't know if it'll make a difference at all. I think we're going to go a little forward. I think that feels marginally better. It's hard to tell. So what you want to do is get it in here, make sure it's all the way up, it's forward, and then tighten it. Again, I've learned over the years just how much torque, but I will go and double check. If you've got the specs, then just do it, torque it properly from the get-go. And now, it's just a matter of adjusting your clutch lever to your liking. And the way I adjust these is you just kind of close your eyes and just put your hands on like you're trying to slip your hands into a set of gloves. And where your hand, you just kind of rotate it to where it just feels like a natural, you're not doing this or this. That side's good. Snug it up. Same for the other. Okay, we're good. Before my wrists were bent. Let's see. So before, these are a good bit higher. They are definitely 1 3/8 or 1.5 inches, something like that higher. They're a little wider and they're a little bit swept back. Only by like 3/8 of an inch. It's not a huge difference. If you looked at this, you wouldn't think anything of it necessarily. When you go get out on another one, you go, oh, this definitely feels better. I'm a tiny bit more upright, but it's less about that. I still have pressure on my wrists, but it's not, my wrist is now straight, you'll notice. So my hand is kind of at a very natural angle to grab, twist the throttle. Before, my wrist was bent like that. And if you're not supporting yourself with your core, and when you're up twisting, riding in the twisties in the mountains and stuff, or you're on track, it's very easy to do because you're never sitting in one place. You're moving around. It's easy to get lazy, especially when you're not in the best shape of your life like I am. Working on that. It definitely, you end up putting pressure on your wrists. And when your wrists are at this angle where they're bent, a little bit down and a little bit in, it just doesn't make it comfortable. Now my wrist is perfectly straight. It's still low. It's still out in front of me. My weight is still over the front of the bike, but it's definitely a much more neutral and natural angle. So it is in fact too cold to go riding today, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to go over and give all these bolts a once over, make sure everything's torqued properly, make sure that I didn't miss anything, make sure everything's tight. And then, you know, next nice day, which probably won't be for a week or two, I'll have to get out and do a ride review. But that's the install. I'll try to condense it and make it as short as possible. But I wish I'd had a way to mount a camera exactly in the same place so I could take a picture of before and after to get the angle. I'm doing this by myself. I'm just winging it. And I didn't have, you know, something to really get it exactly where I could guarantee it would be the same angle, same look, and it wouldn't skew the results and make it look different. But I'm telling you, this point right here is out further. It's up 1.5 inches and it's back. This bar would have been, you saw the angle when I put the two side by side, it would have been from here to there. So that's all it is. We're not putting big goofy bars on. We're not trying to put a handlebar on it to make it an upright bike. That would change your ergonomics in the rider triangle significantly enough that it would affect the handling of the bike. You wouldn't have as much weight over the front end. You wouldn't have the leverage to ride this kind of, you know, you'd have naked bike ergonomics, but a bike that's set up like this, it wouldn't work that well. So they came up with a product that looks stock. It's an easy install, even though on this bike it's a little fiddly. If I wasn't dealing with this steering damper here, that would have sped things up a good bit. But even still, with me stopping and kind of taking my time, give yourself an hour. You can knock this out. All you need are, there's no sockets involved. It's really just a bunch of Allen wrenches. And I would recommend getting rid of those Torx tamper-proof ones. Get rid of them and just go to a regular Allen wrench. And that way, if you had to remove it on the side of the road or whatever, any toolkit, you can go anywhere and have a basic toolkit, and you could, you know, take things apart or do whatever you needed to do to it. So that is it for the install. I have used this. I do have other videos on an R1, on a Gixxer 750, I think. Didn't do an install video, but I certainly have riding videos. Go back about 8 years, 7 years maybe. ZX6R, Sarah and I did it. I did it on mine, and then she worked the camera while we did it to her bike. And so you can see what it looks like on other bikes. But these definitely make a difference. On all 3 bikes that I've personally owned and ridden so far, they made a noticeable difference for on those days where you're on the highway a bunch, it's a long day. At a track day, it's not a big deal. You're going to be, you know, you're out there for 20 minutes a session and then 40 minutes off. You can put up with almost anything for 20 minutes. It's when you are up in the mountains, we ride up to the Dragon, ride the Charahola, all those back roads home. That's a 350-mile ride in one day in like 9 hours. That's a lot of saddle time, and those kind of bars are... Unless you're 22 and really good shape, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask for your wrists and your neck and your shoulders and just your general comfort. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe this thing down, get all the fingerprints and smudges off it. But that, I can tell just by looking at it, those bars feel much more now like the ZX14. Still low, still sporty, but a little wider, flatter, and a very neutral, straight angle for your wrists. So that is it. We're done with mods. I can't think of anything else that this bike needs. And now some people say, well, you could do that. It doesn't need exhaust. It sounds awesome with the stock exhaust. It's making 185, 187, something crazy at the wheel. It doesn't need that. Any more power. It's got the tail tidy. It's got crash protection. I mean, maybe steel braided lines, I guess. It's got Showa balance-free forks front and back. It's got Brembo. I think those are Stylemas, if I'm not mistaken. Those are the newer ones for 2024. I mean, what else does it need? You could go lighter rims. I don't care about that stuff. I'm not Johnny Ray looking for the last few tenths on a track day or in a race where it makes a difference of where I sit on the podium. That will never be me, not even in my wildest dreams. So it's already got a taller windscreen than prior years. The seat seems comfortable. I may not have to replace that. As far as, maybe just get an exhaust hanger and get a seat cowl, that's going to be fine for my luggage. I got luggage up there. Oh, you know what? My next mod, I need to get, it's only like $85. I'll just order that today. My SW Motec, it needs that ring mount. That's all magnetic. It just goes click, and then those roller pins lock in. It just kind of orients itself automatically. You just drop it on, basically, and it just locks in. I need to put that on here so I can use that and get a bigger one, and I can have some luggage there. I got my camera mount. This thing's good to go. All I need is some decent weather that doesn't suck and isn't freezing or raining or snowing, and I can get out there and do some riding on it. So stay tuned. We'll get this video out later tonight, and then, yeah, we'll talk to you guys later. This is the Helibars. I'll put a link to their site. It's a fantastic product. It really is. It has made my other bikes that I put it on, and for Sarah too. And Sarah's, you know, she was 30 years old at the time, but her neck was killing her because she's so little. It was a real stretch to the bars, and it just had her at a weird angle. And she was like, I can't ride this bike very long. I was like, well, ride mine with the Helibars. Same bike, just mine was the ABS KRT edition, and she had the orange non-ABS. But everything else was the same. And she was like, yeah, I need this. And we put it on. She was doing track days and dragging a knee and would ride up in the mountains. Made a world of difference. So if you're having a little bit of problem, a little bit of neck strain, but especially in your wrist and your hand and all that kind of stuff from that goofy angle, you know, the angle's fine when you're at a track day and you're always hanging off the bike and you're over here off the side. You're not always doing that. You're usually not doing that on the road. So there you have it. I'm done talking. I'm going to go in and get a snack later.